Welcome to Highline Excel class number 20. If you want to download this workbook and follow along, click on my YouTube channel, then click on my college website link, and you can download the workbook Week 8 Business 214. If you're enrolled in the class, just go to our Week 8 website. Hey, this is an epic video right here. This is VLOOKUP. This is actually going to be a long video. I have 10 unusual uses for the VLOOKUP. Now, we've already done VLOOKUP in this class about 5 or 6 times. I'm going to review how the VLOOKUP works, because that'll help us understanding all these tricks that we're going to do. Some of them are going to be relatively straightforward and some of them complex. So VLOOKUP, here's our lookup value. We have a number. We want to race through this column right here, this first column of the lookup table or table array, jump over the second column and return it to the cell. VLOOKUP can return a value to a cell or a formula. Now there's a fourth argument that's either true or false, but we're going to just put 1 or 0. If we put a 0 here, VLOOKUP will only do an exact lookup. So this 15, it'll not see 15, so it'll return an NA. If we put a 10 here, then of course the VLOOKUP will return a 10. If it is 1, it does approximate. So when we put in 15, the VLOOKUP will take it, run through the table, and there's lots of ways to describe how the algorithm works. Technically, VLOOKUP will take this 15 and ask the question, is 15 greater than this? Yes, so it goes to the next one. Is 15 greater than this? Yes, so it goes to the next one. Is 15 greater than this? Yes. It then asks, is 15 greater than this? No, it's not, so it goes back here. Now, I want to look at each one of these: 1, 0, true, false, approximate, exact, and run through all the possibilities. So I'm going to build our VLOOKUP. Lookup value is this, comma, the table array is this, comma, the column we're returning from is 1, 2. So I'm going to put a 2. And then I'm going to click on this cell over here, which is G24. G24. Now, I'm going to start exact match, where when we have a lookup value that is below the first value in the table. So it comes here, it says, is it greater than that? Actually, the exact match is, yeah, it realizes that this 0 is bigger than this -1, so it just gives an NA. Now, what about if we have an exact 0 there, but we have a value above the last value? So it's got to be greater than 20. Same thing, it's doing exact match, so no way. Now, what if we have an exact match 20? It'll return that, right? And now, finally, not an exact match, but within the range. So if we have 15, right, it doesn't find a 15 here, so it returns an NA. So only one of these, when we have a 0, is returned, the exact match. Now, let's do the same 4 things, but for approximate. Now, the first one is we want to look up approximate, where the lookup value is below the first value. So I'm going to put -1. No way. It comes here, it says, oh yeah, that's bigger, so I'm going to give NA. Now, approximate, but the lookup value is above the last value. So here's 20. Let's put 50 right here. No problem. It asks the question, is it greater than or equal to that? The answer is yes, but there's nothing more to look at because it's the last value, so it just takes that one right there. That's the approximate match. Now, approximate, not exact, but within the range. So let's say 15. If I type a 15 here, this formula VLOOKUP takes that 15, races through this, and I have lots of notes up here at the top. I have notes from help. I have notes from a great textbook that I use that has a great description of the algorithm. And then I have my notes, the way I think of VLOOKUP. And here's how I think of how it works. VLOOKUP takes the 15. It races through this column right here, the first column. When it runs into the first bigger value, it jumps back to the next row. And then that's how it determines what row it is. Technically, it's asking the question greater than, greater than, greater than, greater than. That's not greater than, so it jumps back here. So then it jumps over here and returns the 3. Now, what about an exact match? Our final approximate with an exact match. We'll put a 20 in, right? No problem. It works just fine. All right, so those are the mechanics of how that 0 and 1 work. Let's look at our second trick here. We want to retrieve a record from a table. We have our name here. I'm going to do a bunch of things here. I'm going to use VLOOKUP. I want to name this table because this is our VLOOKUP table. Never use the field name. So I'm going to come up here and call this grade table. So I clicked up in the name box, typed after I highlighted the range, and enter. So now that's grade table. I want to do data validation on this. Alt-D-L, Tab, L, Tab. Highlight the range of names. Click OK. So now I have a name. And anytime I select a name, I want that to retrieve all of their scores. Now I'm going to highlight the whole range. And in the active cell, I'm going to type equals VL tab, because I'm in 2007. The lookup value is right there. I'm going to hit the F4 key to lock it in front of the column reference. Comma, the table array, I'm going to hit the F3 key. I'm going to double click. This is paste name. Double click that. Comma. Now what about the column index? Since I'm retrieving records, column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If this lookup area in the table were always in A and B, we could just use the column function. But I'm not going to do that because sometimes they're not. Or if you move it, if you cut and paste, then the column function method won't work. So I'm going to use columns with an S. And I need column 2 as the first one for this one, and then 3. So I'm going to say A5, $A, because I'm going to copy this across the column 5, to B5. That needs to be a 5 right there. Let's see if I can do this right, if I can type. Right now, column says how many columns are there from A to B. There's 2. This is relative, so as we copy it this direction, this will increase to C, which will give us 3, and then 4, etc. So that is our method for getting our column number, comma, and this is an exact match because we're looking up words. And there's the formula, Control Enter. Now, when I select a different person, so 2fam, I get 58, 43, 77, 41, 42. So that formula right there is great for retrieving records. Let's look at our next example. Ooh, this is a somewhat complicated one. But it's only because it has 1, 2, 3 VLOOKUPs in one formula. But watch this. Let's just think about this. Commission. Now this 55,000. We actually have a table with a category. Here's our lookup column. Here's our rate. And here's the commission from the previous bracket. So 55, we need to race down here, bump into this bigger value, and then get this row. So there's 3 pieces of information we need to calculate our commission. Now, this calculates the commission, this 925, from all of these earlier categories. Because the first 5,000, or from 0 to 5,000, you get 0 commission. From 5,000 to 10,000, you get 0.5 of your sales. These are our sales. From on this one right here, we get from 20,000 to 10,000, we get a 1%. 20,000, 30,000, we get a 2%. So luckily, we have a column which calculates. And actually, that's just a formula there that calculates from the earlier columns the commission already earned. So we're going to need that. So when we get to here, we need the $925. That's for everything below 5,000. But we have made 55,000. So then we need to get from 55,000, and from that subtract 50,000, which gives us the 5,000 that needs to be multiplied times this rate right here. So look at this. 1, 2, 3 numbers we need. Column 3, column 1, column 2. And so we're going to need to do 3 VLOOKUPs in one formula. Equals VLOOKUP. And the first thing we'll try and retrieve is this 925. So I'm going to click here. This is the lookup value, comma. The table is going to be this whole thing right here. Comma, and the column number we want is 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put a 3. And this is OK to hard code this in because we're not copying this anywhere and it's not going to change. All right, so that gives us, if we Control Enter, it gives us that amount. But now we need to hit F2, and we need to add to that. In parentheses, we need our 55,000. And now we need to get that 50,000. So I'm going to subtract and then use VLOOKUP. this value right here, comma, this whole table right here. Actually, you know what? We could just highlight if we're doing it that way and say, and not do it. But in general, people, if they're doing VLOOKUP a number of times, they keep the whole table intact. But technically, you didn't have to do this. I'm going to leave it like that. Comma, and the column we want to select from. And let me pull this over here. Column index. Oh, it's the first column. And we're allowed to do that. 1, comma. Oh, no comma. We can leave off the last argument because this is approximate. An approximate, so it would be like this. True, the word true, 1, or omitted. So I'm going to omit it. All right. So now we get, if we were to highlight this and hit the F9 key, we could see that it properly gets this. And then the 55,000 minus that will give us the $5,000, which is the taxable amount for this bracket right here. I'm going to Control Z. And then finally, we need the tax rate right here. So I'm going to times, and then guess what? I'm just going to highlight this VLOOKUP right here. Control C. Control V, except for now we need column 2. And if we highlight this right now and hit the F9 key, we can see it got the 6%. Control Z. And so that's 3. Oh, we forgot one thing right here. Close parentheses. Because this whole thing, that's subtraction and that's multiplication. So we need to force the subtraction before the multiplication. All right, Control Enter, and there is our tax. Now, when you're figuring this kind of thing out for the first time, you maybe have to do a couple of the calculations by hand and get the number to check it, but that'll work. If we change this to, say, 11,000, and then it properly, for the 10,000, it got the 25 bucks. From previous category, and then it took 10 minus 11 minus 10, which is 1,000 times 1%, which is the $10, and got it right. So absolutely a great trick and important. Sometimes you need to do multiple VLOOKUPs in one formula. Let's go on to our next trick. In this situation, we're going to use VLOOKUP. We want to look this up in this column right here and return the unit. So I'm going to say equals VLOOKUP. Lookup value is this, comma, the table is going to be without the field names at the top. Control Shift down arrow. I'm going to hit F4 to jump it back. Oh, we do need it locked. Comma, and the column number we're returning to. Actually, we do not need that whole thing. Let's just keep it A, B. So we're going to keep it B here because we don't need that whole range. We're only returning units. And that's going to be 2 for column. And comma, and we do need to do our true or false. For exact match, we'll use 0. Close parentheses, Control Enter. Uh-oh. It means NA. It's not available. So either this product ID is not in there, which it is. Where is it? It's right XVY. So XVY. Oh, there it is right there. So it's there, so that's not the problem. Maybe there's a problem with this, like we have some extra spaces here. No. Oh, there's the problem. There's a bunch of extra spaces. Now, there's 2 ways to solve this. One way is to, and we'll look at both ways. One way is to actually take this whole range, and there's a function that gets rid of extra spaces. The trim function, many of us think the trim function gives us a haircut or puts us on a diet. No, no, it just removes spaces. And it removes single space, all spaces in a text string except for single spaces between words. We don't have words, so it'll just remove all the extra spaces. Now, this is going to, for trim, if you put your cursor right there, it's expecting a single text string. We have a bunch of them here. And so because we're putting a range into a function that's expecting a single value, this makes it array. So we have to Control Shift and Enter. Now, there's another problem. It's returning the units as text because that's what trim does. It returns text. So we're actually going to come to the end of our formula here and plus 0. That's just one of the ways to convert text string that's a number back to a number. Control Shift Enter, and then double click and send it down. So that's using the trim to get rid of spaces in the data dump. Now let's see the other possibility. We're going to scroll all the way down, and there it is. The data dump has spaces. So this is the same situation as above. Here's our formula without the text function. Now the text function formula would be preferable if this was dynamic, meaning people were changing it regularly and you were worried about these extra spaces, then that would work. But if this is a data dump and you just want a quick and dirty way to just get rid of the spaces and not worry about text and all that kind of stuff, and we don't even need this 0 here, actually, because we're not going to use the text function. We'll convert it to text. We simply highlight this column, Control Shift down arrow. In 2007, you go to the Data ribbon, and then Text to Column. That feature is in the Data menu in 2003 and earlier, delimited. Next, I'm going to select Space, and then Finish. And there you go. It gets rid of all the spaces instantly, and our formula works just fine. Now we could have a slightly different situation. Instead of the data dump having spaces, if we had our IDs. Now it would be quick and dirty, especially if it's a table, to just do that, a text to column. But if for some reason you didn't, you do the same formula. This, except for on this right here, you'd use trim. So then no matter what, it'll get rid of all the spaces before and after. The table is going to be these first two columns, ID and units, Control Shift down arrow, F4, comma, and then 2, comma, 0 for exact match. Close parentheses, Control Enter. And so the trim for us got rid of the spaces here. Let's look at our next VLOOKUP trick. In this situation, we have a data dump, and they have a type, sales and customer, but their type does not match our records. We have an ID, a type where it has the particular item, kite, boom, toy, or other, and a number. So we need to add a column to create our type. So we'll say equals whatever this is right here, ampersand. And I'm going to put a dash, double quote, dash, double quote, ampersand. You'd put whatever is necessary for your company. And then a VLOOKUP. And we're going to look up this, comma, this table right here. And I'm going to lock that with my F4 key, comma 2. Because we're returning the number from the second column, and then comma 0. This is an exact match. We're looking up a word right here. So that is using VLOOKUP and concatenation to create from a data dump our type or our product ID or whatever it is. And then we can double click and send it down. Sure enough, that worked. Our next trick is, what if you have to do VLOOKUP but your table is on a different sheet? No problem. See, we have these beers, right? And we need our producer in a column. So I'm going to say equals VLOOKUP. Get this beer right here, comma, and then instead of highlighting a table on the sheet, we just click on the Sheet tab, highlight the table. Notice it puts the sheet name in. I'm going to hit the F4 key twice, comma, we're returning it from the second column, comma, it is, and you can see the formula developing up here, comma, it is a exact match because we're looking up words, 0, close parentheses, Control Enter. So that formula right there works just fine. We have the cell references locked. We have a sheet reference. Double click and send it down. So there it is. Pale Ale is from the Sierra Nevada. I have this randomizing here. Now, what if you had the same situation, but you had it from a different workbook? So I have a different workbook over here. So this is the workbook data table extra file, and you can download all these from our website. So I'll do the same thing. Copy. I'm going to paste it right here. But instead of having that right there, when I'm in this argument, now I'm going to go to the other workbook. Now you can Control Tab or Alt Tab. You could also go to View, switch windows right there, or use your taskbar or whatever it is. Highlight this range right here. You can see up here the formula has a workbook reference. It's in square brackets. The sheet name, ooh, that's a terrible, never leave it sheet name. Cardinal naming sin there. So the name is in square brackets, .xls. The sheet name exclamation point, that's for sheet references, and then the ranges are locked. Control Enter, and then I can double click and send it down. So that's using a workbook reference when the VLOOKUP is in the other workbook, and this one is a worksheet reference when the table is in a different sheet. Let's go to our next trick right here on the V8. So I zoomed in just a little bit here so we can get a closer look. Here's the setup. We have our ID, but the middle part after a dash, in between two dashes, is the area where the part is. And here's our VLOOKUP table, our code, and then that's the area. And we want to add, next to this ID, the area where we can go and get this part. So we're going to use VLOOKUP equals VLOOKUP. But the lookup value, we can't just click there. We need to extract, after dash, the 5 and 5. Here 5 and 9. Now, the way you use we'll use the mid function. The way you use the mid function is you have to recognize a pattern. Now, I have a couple videos on the mid that shows you a bunch of different patterns. But for us here, the pattern's easy. There's always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's always the 6th character, 4- number, 4- number. So we're going to say text. That's the text we want to extract. And comma, what is the starting number? Again, for us, it's easy because our pattern is always, it's the 6th character where we want to start. So 6. Comma, and how many characters, number of characters, for us, it's always 2. We can close parentheses on that. And that, if we highlight it and hit F9, we can see is 55. Now, see those quotes there? That means text. And that's not going to work over here because VLOOKUP will match text against number and go no match. Control Z. So we're going to add 0 to convert that to a from text to a number. If I highlight it and hit F9, you can see that that does the trick. Control Z. So there we have it. There's our lookup value, comma, our lookup table. And I'm going to hit F4 to lock it, comma. We're returning it from the second. And it doesn't matter which one because we have numbers and there's nothing in between. I'm going to put 0 just in case because this really is an exact match. Control Enter, and then double click and send it down. And we can see for 58, 58 is office, 59 is basement. So that's VLOOKUP in mid. Our next trick, number 9. All right, our next VLOOKUP example, we have Great Beer, Red Hook, Pyramid. And we need to look up in this list right here and return the full producer name. So Great Beer, we want to return Great Beer Incorporated. Red Hook, we want Red Hook. Pyramid, we need Pyramid Brewery. So this is data we enter in regularly, so we maybe have a huge column of this, but now we need the full name. And I want to go through and cut and paste. So I'm going to use VLOOKUP. But we have only part of the text. So partial text VLOOKUP. We want lookup this, return that. So we'll do equals VLOOKUP. And we're going to use some wildcards. In double quotes, we're going to use asterisks, double quote. Now this means one or more characters. Ampersand to join this, and then on the other side, the back side, we'll do ampersand, double quote, asterisk, double quote. This just says find anything with Great Beer if there's nothing or one character or two characters or three characters before, and same after. So it'll find this because there's some stuff after, and that wildcard will pick it up. Comma, then we have just this column right here because we're just returning that, F4. Lock it going down, comma, and the column we're looking something up in is column 1, comma, and this is an exact match. So exact match, I'm not going to put false, I'm putting 0, close parentheses. Control Enter, and double click and send it down. And sure enough, Sierra Nevada got us to return Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, the full name. All right, our next trick. Web query. We want to go from $1 and see how many Chinese yuan it is. Now, before we do a VLOOKUP, into some table. Let's do a currency exchange rate web query, web query, and put it over here. So I'm going to go to Data, Get External Data, Existing Connections. In earlier versions, it's the Data menu, Get External Data. And I'm going to click on that. And down here, we have our currency rates. Sometimes on some computers, you may not see these. These have been around for a few versions. You click Browse, and then you'd actually have to go find it. But here it is, currency rate. You could also look up stock quotes. Double click. I'm going to dump it right there is fine. And click OK. It's working just like that. It'll plop it right down here. And this is live on the internet. And so we have our little table. There it is. And over here we have in US dollars and in per US dollars here. So now let's make this dynamic. Here's the Chinese yuan to US dollar. So really what we want is one of these two values depending on what we're doing. And I want to make it dynamic. I want to be able to select any one of these and have our formula convert from US dollars to whatever currency it is. So first, I'm going to do data validation. Click right here, Alt-DL to get to data validation. I'm going to say Tab L for list, Tab. And then I'm going to go get my source data. Anytime you see that collapse dialog box, you can get whatever cells you want. Click there, Control-Shift-Down arrow, and then click OK. Scroll up here. Now our conversion is going to be from dollars to whatever currency we have right there. So we're going to need to use the per column. That's the third column. Equals VLOOKUP. And the lookup value is going to be this. Notice now that we have data validation, it's whatever the text is here is already the same as over in the list, comma, the table. I'll highlight all three columns. Control-Shift-Down arrow. Whoops. Try that again. Highlight these three columns, Control-Shift-Down arrow. F4 to lock it, just so I can jump my screen back in. We're never copying that anywhere, so we don't need cell references. Comma, the column is 3. And I am definitely doing comma false or 0 for exact match. Now, that'll give us that $6.83. But really, we need to then multiply that times this right here. What's so great about this is it's dynamic. As currency rates change, that table will change if you refresh it. And we have a drop down right here. So euro to US dollar. I've also done a little text formulas here, which I've done in other videos to extract whatever it is right there. So it says euro to US dollar. So now we have a nice little whatever we choose from here, Japanese yen to US dollars. Sure enough, it will do it for us. So that's VLOOKUP into a web query. All right, our last one. This is just a little warning. Being a teacher, I see this one a lot. Let's go ahead and assign a letter grade. Here's our table. Here's our percentages, and this is based on the scores over to the right here. And here's our table. So this person with 82%, VLOOKUP will come over here, find a bigger one, and then return a C. So I'm going to say equals VLOOKUP equals this, comma, the little table, and I'm going to hit F4 to lock it. And I'm going to say column 2, close parentheses, because we don't need approximate. Control Enter, and then double click and send it down. Now let's just take a look here. Let's test this. Lung Rad Coolinator got 85%, and her grade is C. But let's check over here. Wait a second. 85. The way this works, since this is 0.85 under there, that's just percentage format. VLOOKUP takes it, it races down here. It says greater than, yes. Greater than or equal to, yes. Greater than or equal to, yes. Greater than or equal to, no. So it stops here. It should be delivering a B there, but it's delivering a C. Hey, and this is a reason why some teachers don't don't use VLOOKUP. They're like, look, it doesn't work. But we're being tricked by formatting. If we highlight this and Control 1, increase the percentage format to, say, 2, we can see, it's not 85. That's 84.5. So VLOOKUP looks until it sees a bigger value, jumps back to the next row, and returns the C. Now, there's two ways we can deal with this. Either your syllabus says, or the grading scale says, hey, we're going to use 1, 2, 3 decimals. In that case, the grade really is C. But if you really want the VLOOKUP to look up 85%, which means it has to round, then we need to use the round function. I'm going to paste this down here and see if we can amend our numbers here. Highlight all of them, hit F2. And if we want to round 1, 2 to that position, because really this number is 0.845, we want to take this and round it. Now I have a formula up here. Here I'm just doing a cell reference. But nevertheless, we take that number, comma, and round to the second position, the 100th position. Control Enter. And now we get, because our rules are that we're rounding to that second position, we get 85. We rounded this. Now the VLOOKUP is not going to get tricked by formatting because we've adjusted the formula itself to do exactly what we want. And sure enough, it returns a B. All right, 11 great tricks on VLOOKUP. When we come back, we got more videos on horizontal lookup, index match, and more. See you then.